guys, it's Tessa. So for today's video, we are doing a tutorial on how to make these ear warmers I've been selling and making videos about nonstop. I just love making these so much. The only stitches we are using is half double crochet, and then we're just doing slight differences on each of the rows. This is what it looks like. Let's get into it. Alright, so for the ear warmer, the only thing you will need is your weight for yarn. You can also do 2 strands of slightly smaller yarn if needed. This is in the Cobblestone Ivy colorway of I Love This Yarn. You'll need a 5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and you will also need a tapestry needle for sewing in your ends later. For this, you are only really going to be using 1 stitch, and you're just going to be kind of modifying it a little bit. So the stitch you're going to be using for this entire thing is a half double crochet. However, the 2 ways we're going to be using these half double crochets is one using back loop only, and then the other one is going to be using back bar only. And it's just going to create a really nice effect on the pattern itself. So there's 2 ways you can start this. You can either start by chaining 70 and doing a half double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then it's half double crocheting all the way down. Or you can do my preferred method, which is doing a foundation half double crochet, which is what I will show you here. You're going to create a slip knot, you're going to put that on your hook, and the first thing you're going to do is chain 2. This will be used essentially as our side piece or our chaining space of a normal row. You'll wrap your yarn around your hook to start your half double crochet, and you'll insert your hook into the bottom loop, wrap your yarn around your hook and pull it through that bottom loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook at this point. Wrap your yarn around, pull through that first loop, wrap around, pull through all the loops. And then you'll kind of see here that we have a little bit of this bar here, and if we look, there's a little bit of a V. It's kind of hard to tell on this first stitch. We're going to do our best to go into both of those pieces of the V. We're going to do the same thing we did previously. You're going to go through that first loop, then around the next. And then again, this V is a little bit better to see, but it's still a little bit hard to see. Mostly you'll just kind of get it from the feel and how it looks. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you, and we'll try that again. Okay, so you wrap your yarn around your hook, you find that V, you insert your hook into that V space, wrap your yarn around, pull through, whoops, and then you wrap your yarn around, you pull through that first loop, wrap around, pull through all 3. You'll do this a total of 69 times. You should have 69 half double crochets by the end of this. So I have made my full chain. It is going to look a little longer than it will be. You can see it's bunching a little bit or buckling a little bit. Once we do the more rows, or a few more rows, it'll kind of come a little bit closer to the size it'll need to be. But I promise you, it may look long now. It's going to be worth it, especially if you fold it in half. It looks quite small actually at this point, but it's going to stretch a lot, specifically because we did that foundation half double crochet. If you are choosing or have chosen to do the chaining instead of the foundation half double crochet, I just recommend going up a half to a whole size when you're doing your chains, and then going back down to the 5mm just to ensure that stretchiness is there. So from here, every row will end with chaining 1. You will turn your work, and for this first row, all we're going to do is do a back loop only half double crochet. So let me zoom that in for you. Oops. So here, wrap your yarn around our hook, insert our hook in the back part of this V, wrap yarn around our hook, pull through, wrap yarn around, pull through all 3 loops. Once again, you will wrap your yarn around your hook, go through that back part of that V, wrap yarn around, wrap around, pull through all 3. You will do this all the way across. The only stitch you will not be doing this on is the last stitch of the row. This just ensures that when you're seaming it up later, the edges are a little bit straighter. So again, you'll just do this all the way across, and then we'll move on to the second stitch of the pattern. We're at the last few stitches, and again, we're just going to keep repeating this process until that last stitch. So just doing the back loop only. And then on this final stitch, you're just going to go through both of these bars instead, just to complete the row. So it should look something like this. You can kind of see a little bit of a V-ish forming here in the front. And then again, like I previously mentioned, at the end of each row, or start, whichever one, you just need to have a chain before we continue. You will chain, and then you will turn your work. For these back bar half double crochet, you're just going to wrap your yarn around your hook like you've done previously. We're going to insert it into this piece here. So if we look at the top, there's a V here, and if we turn slightly, there's a different V, or there's a V facing the different way. And you will insert your hook into that bottom piece, wrap it around, half double crochet like normal. And again, wrap your yarn around your hook, go through this back part, insert, wrap around, insert, wrap around. You'll go all the way through, and you'll do this all the way across. Let me do a couple for you so you can kind of see what it'll look like on the other side. Oops. So here, you'll see that we're getting a clear view of these V's as well. Oops. There you go. So you'll see we get a clear view of those V's as well, and that's the pattern we're looking for here. I'm going to do a couple more, and then we'll see each other at the end of this row. Like we discussed previously, I'm not going to do this back bar stitch in the last stitch of the row. We're just going to do a normal half double crochet in that stitch. And then I will show you what it is supposed to look like at this point. Once we move on to the next stitch, or once I move on to the next row, we will kind of discuss how long this is supposed to be. You're going to do your chain one, you're going to turn. So you're going to do your chain one, and then you'll turn like I did. So this is what it should be looking like at this point. It still might be bowing a little bit, but again, the more rows we do, the less bowing it'll have. We're going to do a total of 13 rows. So your final row should be the back bar row. Really, this is just to get the ear warmer at about 5.5 to 6 inches. Kind of just depends on your tension a little bit. So if you need to do more rows than that, you're more than welcome to. But we're just going to keep repeating these 2 stitches across the 13 rows. So this row, once again, is back loop only all the way across. Next one will be back bar, and you'll just repeat that all the way to the top. And yeah, so it's a pretty simple pattern. It is just repeating those 2 stitches basically this whole time. You will see that over time, it's already kind of doing it now, this pattern makes it slant a little bit to your whatever your working side is. So currently this edge is farther out than this edge, and it's going to keep slanting the whole rest of the way while we work on this. That does not really matter here with this pattern, just because we are going to be seaming up those short sides. So with the slanting, it doesn't really matter. It can be a problem in the future for different types of patterns, so I would not recommend using this set of stitches to make like a scarf, because you're going to have that slanting problem. More likely than not, though, you can probably fix the slanting with just some steam blocking or wet blocking, but for at least this purpose, that slanting doesn't really matter here. So if it does happen, don't worry about it. But I'm just going to keep going, and I'll check in after a couple more rows so you can kind of get an idea of what the shape will look like overall. Alright, so I'm on row 7. I just completed that. I just wanted to show you kind of what it's looking like so far. So you'll see that this is also curling a little bit. Again, this gets fixed a bit when we do the sewing up the sides. This is just what it's looking like so far. Here's this leaning. You can kind of see it a bit more here. It's just leaning a little bit to the right, and then this side is leaning as well to the right, just a little bit farther from the top instead of the bottom. So I'm going to do this for a total of 13 rows, and then I will come back and we will go over how to seam it and finishing it off. I have finished row 13. I'm going to take my scissors, oops, find my end, I like to keep my ends a little bit long just so it makes weaving them in a little easier. So long we've left our tail. I also personally choose to thread my needle before I do the seaming. It makes it just a tad bit easier for me. So what we'll do with the outside or pretty side facing up, we will touch the sides together. And before we do anything else, you're going to grab both of the sides again. You want the pretty side on the inside here. You're going to grab both edges and we're just going to make sure that they line up corner to corner. These short corners should reach each other like this. And then you're just going to push them into each other. So one edge from one side will be on the outside, the first edge on the other side will be in the middle, the second edge of the first side will be in the middle as well, and then that final edge of the outside will be the second piece. You're going to take your needle, you're going to insert it into the first stitch that has this thread on it, connected to it, your end is connected to it. You're going to insert your hook, your needle into the second layer, the third layer, and the fourth layer. You just want to make sure that every time you're inserting your hook, you're catching all 4 layers and that you're not going too far down either. You're really just using that first stitch as your piercing point all the way down to the end. Make sure your end from the start of the pattern is out and not somehow twisted in here or tucked in. Again, you're just going to keep going like this all the way across here. And then I do an additional securing method personally that I will show you once we get to the end. That's why part of the reason why I keep my tails so long. So I'm going to go through all 4 layers the final time. So sometimes I'll end up on the same side as our starting end, sometimes I'll end up on the opposite side. Does not really matter here. So I'm just taking my needle off because it makes this step a little easier. I'm going to tie a double knot here and just make sure I tighten it. This is just an extra layer of security to make sure that if our ends do poke out at any point, that we will be still safe on the securing of this. I'm going to rethread my needle. I'm going to go back over all of this one more time, coming from the back side. This is where it kind of gets a little bit difficult occasionally to insert your needle. You just kind of, again, have to find those like sweet spots that you've kind of already pierced through or are just kind of in the same area. And then once we get to this left end again, I'm going to go back through to the right side one more time. And we're just going to tie those in a double knot again on the end. We'll weave in our ends to the final bit and then we'll be done. So this is really the reason why we keep that really long tail, is I should have just enough to come back through all of this. The stitches again. Pull out our needle. We're just going to tie this into a knot one more time. I really should have tied this end, the green end. Should have cut the green end maybe a little bit longer, but that is okay. I'm just going to cut the original end to a similar length of the green one. And then we are going to, typically what I would do is thread these back in and then insert my needle. But because these ends are a little bit short now, I'm going to thread my needle first, at least part of the way, just so that it makes life a little easier when we add these ends into it. So we've now got our ends in there. I can pull my needle back a little bit to keep weaving. And then when it pops out, it will pull my needle through. It might get a little caught, it's just because of the fold. I'll just pull it a couple times to get it loose. Tighten it slightly so you have a little bit of excess of the ends, snip them, and then you can straighten it back out and you're good to go. So currently this could kind of be what this looks like at the moment. And all you're going to do is take your sides and flip them. So it might sit a little funny at first, this one kind of is, but then you can just stretch it out a little bit. You can do it this way, or you can stick your hands in, oops, and stretch it like this. really all we're looking for is that this centerpiece here sits flat like this. And so here we have the finished guy. If you have any questions on this additionally to what I've already said, if you have any additional questions on this, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer more questions. If you guys want a tutorial on how to do the two-tone versions, I can do that as well. Really, it's just a slight modification of that foundation row or the chaining row. Ignore how long my bangs are and how crazy they look at the moment. They're being trimmed soon. But here is what the ear warmer looks like on. So you'll see, because of the way we did the stitching, it stretched well over my ears and stuff, keeps them covered. And that little design piece I was talking about, how it sits diagonally or horizontally, it sits like that, and it's sitting nicely. Again, you'll have a little bit of this curling still, but over time and wear, acrylic yarn does kind of relax a little. You'll have possibly the same problem with a cotton yarn as well, but I don't know for sure. Just because I haven't used, or not a cotton yarn, a wool yarn is what I meant to say there. You might have the same issue with wool yarn. I'm not 100% sure though, because I've only used wool once, and I used 2 strands of it, so it's a little bit bulkier no matter what. But here is our finished ear warmer. Use this pattern as a beanie instead, so you can do like my cat ear beanie tutorial, but instead of using just half double crochets, you can use this stitch pattern, so that when you do all the seaming on that pattern, it should also straighten out that curving we were having. But this is our finished guy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!